Hi, my name is Emily Turpak, and I am a realtor in the greater Philadelphia area. This means that I cover all of Philadelphia County and the surrounding suburbs in Pennsylvania and South Jersey. So, Philadelphia has something like 150 distinct neighborhoods. So, if you're new to the city, that can feel completely overwhelming, which is why today I'm breaking down the major neighborhoods that people ask me about the most. So, what they're like, who they're good fit for, and what you can actually expect to find there in terms of housing. If you haven't seen my most recent video on the different types of properties that there are in Philly, such as row homes, twins, trinities, single families, go watch that one after this because I'll be referencing those terms throughout the video. I'll link it above and in the description below. So let's start in the riverwards section and then work our way around the city. Fishtown, Northern Liberties, and Old Kensington sit just north of Old City, hugging the Delaware River. And together, they're some of the most talked about neighborhoods in the city right now. Fishtown got its name from the German fishing community that settled there generations ago. And since then, it's become known for Frankfurt Ave, which is the restaurant, coffee, and nightlife corridor that put it on the map nationally, honestly. So thanks Soraya. It's not Soraya, it's Soraya. Johnny Brenda's, Frankfurt Hall. Housing here is mostly row homes, which range from untouched traditional rows to fully gutted renovations, plus newer construction. And this isn't a cheap, find it and flip it type of neighborhood anymore. It's really matured and the prices reflect that. Northern Liberties, also known as No Libs, sits just south of Fishtown and is centered around the Piazza and Liberties Walk. And you'll find more mid rise condo buildings here alongside row homes, and it tends to have maybe a bit more nightlife and just densely packed into a smaller footprint, if you will. Now, Old Kensington sits between Fishtown, Northern Liberties, and Norris Square. And it's worth being specific here because Kensington, as a broader area, has a reputation that doesn't apply evenly across every block. So, Old Kensington itself has seen a real investment and redevelopment, but this is a neighborhood where block by block knowledge really matters, probably more than anywhere else in the city, quite honestly. And this is exactly the kind of nuance I mentioned in my pricing video. So you really want an agent who knows these blocks specifically. All three neighborhoods are served by the Market Frankfurt line, also known as the L. So getting into Center City is quick and easy, even if you don't have a car. Now let's head over to Fairmount. So Fairmount sits on the north side of Center City along the Ben Franklin Parkway, and it's often called the Art Museum area for good reason. You have the Philadelphia Museum of Art, you have the Rodin Museum, the Barnes Foundation, they're all right there. Now, this is a classic row home neighborhood with traditional brick rows dating back to the 1920s. Now, many of them are thoughtfully renovated to preserve the original character. And what makes Fairmount honestly stand out for newcomers is Fairmount Park itself. It's actually one of the largest urban park systems in the country, sitting right at the neighborhood's doorstep, which kind of gives a slower, greener feel than a lot of the other neighborhoods that are closed in a little bit more. It's also extremely walkable and has the Broad Street line and several bus and trolley routes running through it. And it tends to attract a mix of, young professionals and families who want proximity to Center City without giving up that real neighborhood feel. I even have clients who will walk to work in Center City from where they live in Fairmount. And if you do need to commute outside of the city to the Pennsylvania suburbs, but you still want to live in the city, Fairmount could be a really great option just because it's so close to 76 and 676. Now let's move on to West Philadelphia. So West Philly is enormous and it's not just one neighborhood, it's actually a whole collection of them. So it would be University City, Spruce Hill, Cedar Park, and so many more, honestly. Now, University City is the anchor that's kind of driven almost entirely by Penn and Drexel's campuses. So, kind of the buyer pool here tends to include a lot of faculty and medical professionals and grad students, people like that. Now, I had one client one time called West Philly Professorville, and I told him that I would coin that term. So thanks, Johnny. Now, housing stock includes a lot of large, architecturally interesting row homes, I would say, along with some twins and even some single family homes as you move kind of further out from the universities. And if you're willing to go a few blocks beyond the university city corridor, neighborhoods like Spruce Hill and Cedar Park tend to offer strong value for buyers. So they have bigger homes. I'm talking 3,000 square foot plus homes, tree lined streets, and just a slightly more residential feel, all while still being walkable, all the same. But I want to highlight the greenery again because that seems to be a reason why a lot of people want to live there. Then we're going to head to Point Breeze. So, Point Breeze is in South Philadelphia and it's tucked between Graduate Hospital and the rest of South Philly. And it's one of the fastest changing neighborhoods in the city right now. Historically, this was a working class row home neighborhood that just saw decades of disinvestment before starting a real turnaround. So today you'll see a mix of original row homes, a few that are untouched, but I would say most have been fully renovated, alongside a significant wave of new construction row homes, many with roof decks, with skyline views. And it's just a neighborhood that is in active transition, which means pricing and condition can vary dramatically from block to block within just a few streets. What draws people here is the value relative to its location. It's genuinely close to Center City, Broad Street, and University City, and at price points that are still more accessible than the fully established neighborhoods just north or east of Point Breeze. I will say the one thing that this neighborhood doesn't have is a commercial corridor. So instead of there being one street that's lined with all of the restaurants and shops where people congregate, I would say everything is more spaced out. So your favorite coffee shop could be 4 blocks in one direction and your go-to restaurant is 4 blocks in the other opposite direction. And Graduate Hospital is just north of Point Breeze. And as I mentioned in my video about the prices of houses in Philly, with a couple of exceptions, the closer you are to Center City, the more expensive it is. And that would be the case with Graduate Hospital compared to Point Breeze. So Graduate Hospital is definitely more expensive. And some of that is driven by its proximity to CHOP and Penn hospitals. I would say 95% of my clients who are in healthcare live in Grad Hospital and either walk or bike to Penn. Now we're heading to Queen Village and Bella Vista, which sit just south of Society Hill and South Street. And they're two of the oldest residential pockets in the entire city. Now, Queen Village was originally part of Old Southwark, and it still has that historic, kind of tightly packed row home character, if you will, with narrow streets and a real strong sense of civic pride among its residents. And then you have Bella Vista, just to the west of Queen Village, which was the first neighborhood in Philadelphia settled by Italian immigrants. And it's still anchored by Ninth Street in the Italian market, which is home to fresh fruit and vegetable stands, Italian cheese shops, and local butchers. Now, housing here is a mix of classic row homes and true Trinity houses. Those are those tiny homes that are one room per floor with the spiral wooden stairs that I talked about in my property types video. Both neighborhoods trade at a premium, okay, for their location and history, but Bella Vista tends to run slightly more affordable than Queen Village for comparable homes. And if you live in Bella Vista, walking to Center City honestly takes no time at all. Now, in terms of the vibe, Queen Village has kind of an artsy feel, which I think you'll pick up on if you were to walk around. And their food scene has really taken off over the last few years. Now, you're also close to Columbus Boulevard, which has kind of your everyday conveniences. So think a full size Target, Home Depot, IKEA, even a Trader Joe's that's apparently going to open up. And this area is also close to 76 and 95. So if you need to commute to another part of the city, this area is actually probably a pretty good option for you. Now we're going to head to East Passyunk, which sits just south of Bella Vista and Queen Village and centered around really the diagonal stretch of Passyunk Ave, which cuts kind of against Philadelphia's grid system and kind of gives the neighborhood its own distinct identity. This is deeper South Philly and still has that generational family rooted character, even though Passyunk Ave itself has become one of the best restaurant corridors in the entire city. Here, housing is almost entirely row homes. I can actually only think of a handful of condos, and you'll find a real mix here. So it's multi generational, family owned homes right alongside recently renovated flips, often on the same block. And this is where you'll see someone sweeping their sidewalks at any given time, which is very South Philly. And I'm going to set the stage. Okay. If you live here, your one neighbor to one side is going to be Marie. She grew up a block away and inherited the house from her great uncle, who passed away with no kids. And she's lived in that house for 42 years, which she will remind you of every single time you see her. Then your other neighbor on the opposite side of you is going to be maybe, a newly married couple, maybe in their mid 30s, who just moved to the area from Center City, and they're going to start trying for a family soon. So those are going to be your neighbors in East Passyunk. Next, we're heading up to Northwest Philly, and the character shifts completely here. So that would be Mount Airy and Chestnut Hill. And these are kind of known for being genuinely walkable and kind of almost these garden like neighborhoods, which is a great way to put it. It just has this level of green space, and I would say architectural variety that you just don't find closer to the city. Chestnut Hill is often called Philadelphia's Garden District just because it has these like cobblestone stretches of Germantown Ave. You have these large stone mansions and some of the highest home values in the entire city. Mount Airy sits just below Chestnut Hill and is known nationally as one of the first successfully integrated neighborhoods in America, and it truly still carries that reputation for diversity and community today. Housing stock here is genuinely different from what we've covered so far. So you'll see painted Victorians, stone twins, glass mid century modern ranchers, and colonial revival homes, all on these tree lined streets, most with actual yards and parking, something that's rare as you get closer to the city core. I always joke and say that Mount Airy is three-quarters of the way to the suburbs, and Chestnut Hill is seven-eighths of the way there. Now, Mount Airy has a little downtown area, but Chestnut Hills is actually even more robust. Just has great restaurants, gift shops, bakeries, it even has a grocery store. And while you'll find the occasional new construction or completely rehabbed home, I would say most of the original character in these houses are actually still intact. And that's because typically the people who live in these neighborhoods are the people that love the history and want to see it preserved. And finally, Manayunk and Roxborough, which sit alongside the Schuylkill River in Northwest Philly, bordering Mount Airy and Chestnut Hill. Manayunk is known for its Main Street commercial corridor, so that has restaurants, bars, and boutique shopping, plus regional rail access, which kind of makes it popular with younger professionals. Roxborough, just up the hill, tends to skew more family friendly just because it has parks, Gorgas Park, and just a more suburban residential feel while still being inside the city limits. Housing here includes row homes and twins closer to Main Street, and then larger single family homes with actual driveways and backyards as you move further into Roxborough. Here, you'll still find older homes, but oftentimes they've been fully renovated. Plus, there's a good amount of brand new construction in this specific area, which often comes with parking. This area is also super close to 76. So if you need to commute west into Pennsylvania, this should definitely be on your radar. So that's a real overview of the different neighborhoods in Philly that I get asked about the most. And that's everything from Fishtown down to South Philly, out to University City, and all the way up to Northwest Philly. And every one of these areas really has its own identity and its own housing stock and its own price point. And honestly, this is exactly why so many buyers benefit from working with an agent who knows the city block by block and neighborhood by neighborhood. So, if you're thinking about a move to Philadelphia, the main line, or South Jersey, drop a comment with what you're looking for, or even better, reach out through my website. I'd love to help you figure out exactly where you could see yourself living in the city of Philadelphia. Thanks for watching, and I will see you at the next one.